Hi everyone, welcome again to another video of the series SAT Math Explained. Today our topic will be nonlinear equations in one variable and system of equations in two variables. It does sound like a lot, but it's just two basic topics, so they just put it into one focus skill. And if you guys, before we get started, just if you guys want, subscribe, like, and click the bell because I do upload daily, so you guys can know when I upload. So, what do you need to know? Basically, these skills are just like building off of everything in the algebra domain with just slightly more complex problems. Like it added nonlinear equation instead of linear and added system of equation in two variables instead of one variable. So you just need to apply the previous skills that you know with the with linear equation. You just have to apply it to nonlinear equations like quadratics, and it's mostly the same thing with a few extra things that I'll go over later. And for the system of equations, most of it similar to the one variable. They can be solved using Desmos. And so the next thing you need to know is how to do basic factoring. So I covered that in my previous video, so if you guys want, you can go. It was called, I'm not sure what it's called, but it's my previous video. And yeah, so you need to know factoring. Sometimes you're gonna have to find a solution, and you could also just use Desmos and like find the x-intercepts. You also need to know the quadratic formula, and let's go for quadratic formula first. So sometimes you're going to get some question options where it's going to ask for the solutions of a problem, but the solutions will all be in the quadratic formula form. So the quadratic formula is it is negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And you get the a, b, and c from the equation in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c. And so you get a from here, b, and c, and then you plug into that equation, and that gives you the solutions. And yeah, so basically, the questions where they ask you for the solution of all the answers will be like looking like this: a number plus something under the square root divided by a number. So whenever you get questions like that, you could either use the quadratic formula, or you could graph it. I'm gonna show you how to do that later, or you could graph it. The x-intercepts will be like a decimals, like 2.315 or something, because it's going to be a weird number like this. So then after graphing it, you could put the answer options into the calculator, and you can see which one equals the x-intercept, which I'm going to go over that later. Then there's also, you need to know the discriminant. So the discriminant is just a part of the, what's it called, the quadratic formula. So this part under the square root, b squared minus 4ac, if you solve this for a quadratic, so that's the discriminant. B squared minus 4ac is the discriminant. Okay, my thing ripped. So b squared minus 4ac is the discriminant. So basically, if it's equal to 0, you have one solution. One solution. If it's greater than 0, so positive, you have 2. If it's less than 0, you have 0 solutions. So sometimes there's going to be an example about this. It's going to give you like a variable, like in the equation there's going to be a, and it says if it has one solution, what is the possible value of a? And there's going to be many possible values, but you just have to write one. It's going to be like a open answer question. So yeah, so 0 solutions if it's less than 0. Then the other thing you need to know is Desmos. Just like most of these questions, you can also utilize Desmos to an extent to help you. Like, instead of factoring, just plug in and find the x-intercept. Instead of using the quadratic formula, find the x-intercepts, then show how they're equal. I'm going to go over that later. You can use it to help you with the discriminant to see if it's positive or negative. And all other things you'll see in the examples as well. And then just understand how equations work. So you just have to know, like, basic, if this is the equation, like for a quadratic equation, how the c is the y-intercept, you need to know, like, if it's in the form x minus c, and x minus a, where c and a are constants. So you can basically take ax squared plus bx plus c, and you can, if sometimes it shows up in this form, and when it shows up in this form, x equals c, and x equals a are the x-intercepts of a quadratic. But anyways, yeah, so you guys are this might seem confusing right now, but when you go over the examples, it's pretty simple. So how do you solve these equations? So for the second part, system of equations, two variables, almost every single one, if not all of them, you just plug it into Desmos, find the intersection point, see what it's asking for, and make sure you see what it's asking for, because sometimes like, okay, you find the intercept, they intersect at 0.5 comma 6, let's say. But then the question is going to ask you, what is x times y if x is the x coordinate, y is the y coordinate, or maybe it's going to be what is 5x, something like that. So just make sure what it's asking for. It's a common mistake and trick that SAT uses. And then for the ones about the nonlinear equation in one variable, it's literally the same thing we learned in the algebra videos that I posted, all the algebra focus skills, except now it's slightly more complex. Like I said before, it's gonna be nonlinear equations, so x squared, quadratic, exponentials like x cubed, maybe a cubic. Sorry, exponential is not like x cubed. Exponential like a to the x, or a cubic like x cubed. And so the questions vary a lot here. So just understand what is being asked and apply this, and try to apply the skills that you know. And make sure to try your best to utilize Desmos. So that is it for the procedure. Let's just move on to the examples. And as usual, as I always say, for the examples, try to solve the questions before you watch my explanation, because you don't learn anything from just watching me solve. You just gain a false sense of understanding, which won't help you on test day. So as usual, we do 2 easy questions, 2 hard questions, two medium questions, and a single hard question. So let us get started. So this one tells us, which of the following is a solution to the equation 2x squared minus 4 equals x squared? So this is similar to the ones in the beginning where it just asks you to solve for x. So here we can just solve for x, but here there's an x squared, so it's nonlinear. That's the only difference. So there's 2 ways to solve this. You could solve it using Desmos, I'm going to show after. But for now, let's say you wanted to solve it using paper pencil. So you have 2x squared minus 4 equals x squared. So just start by like isolating the x, like we did with the linear equations. So isolating the x, minus 2x squared from both sides, minus 2x squared, minus 2x squared. You get negative x squared is equal to negative 4. Because they're both negative, we multiply both sides by negative 1, or just, let's say, just multiply the whole equation by negative 1. You get 4 equals x squared. 4 equals x squared. Then when you take the square root of this, square root, you need to also realize that x can equal 2, and x can also be negative 2, because the square root of 4, negative 2 times negative 2, let's say x is negative 2, negative 2 squared, negative times negative 2 is also 4. So x equals 2, x equals negative 2. Let's see if one of these should be an option. And for this one, the answer is 2. And that's it. So now I'm going to show you guys how you could easily have solved this using Desmos if you preferred that. Okay, so solve this using Desmos. Basically, just get the equation, plug it in. 2x squared minus 4 equals x squared. Then just see where does it cross the x-axis. Right here it's 2, right here it's negative 2. But here's something. Sometimes when there's more complex equations and you put like an equation on this side, an expression on this side, an expression on this side, you set them equal to. Sometimes it's not gonna like mark it out like that. It's just going to show the line, but it's not gonna tell you the number. So that becomes a problem, because sometimes for the what's it called, the short answer questions where you write a number, it's gonna be like a long decimal, and then you just keep closing up, but it doesn't tell you the number. So a better way to do this, it's you put 2x squared minus 4, and then you put the equation x squared. Then they're equal to, so just find where they intersect, that's where they're equal. X equals 2, x equals negative 2, and then that would be the answer. So just always try to like do it like this instead of setting them equal to in one equation. Write both equations and then see where they intersect. So now let's just go back to let's move on to the next problem. Okay. The next problem tells us that the absolute value of x minus 2 equals 9. So this absolute value is a nonlinear function, so that's one of those, nonlinear equation. So what is one possible solution to the given equation? So one possible solution. So we want x minus 2, the absolute value of x minus 2 equals 9. So how do we solve this if there's an absolute value? Because like we're used to linear, we just isolate the x and then we solve. But there's an absolute value, so how do we solve this? So to remove the absolute value, you can set it equal to plus or minus the other side. So you can do x minus 2 equals 9, and then x minus 2 equals negative 9. Because if you think about it, when you put the absolute value, it's just going to take any negative number to make it positive, basically. So let's say if we want this side, absolute value of x minus 2 to equal to 9. If we set the inside equal to 9, absolute value of 9, you get 9. But if we set the inside equal to negative 9, you take the absolute value, you also get 9. So they both work. So then you just solve for each. And this was one of the first, I think my first video was about this, how to solve for these. Just add 2 to both sides, you get x equals 11. X equals 11. And then right here, add 2 to both sides, you get x equals negative 9 plus 2, you get x equals negative 7. And those are your two solutions. The question only asks you for one possible solution. It doesn't state any constraints. So you could put either, you put 11 or you put negative 7. Both of them would be counted as correct. So that is it for the two easy questions. Let's move on to the medium questions. And if you ever have any questions about any of the questions, the concept, or just want like a future video or something explained better, like maybe you don't understand factoring, want me to make a video about it, just tell me in the comments and I'll try to make it happen. And so yeah, let's move on and make sure to try and solve the question on your own. So this one asks us what value satisfies the equation above. So a value that satisfies the equation above, they set an equation equal to 0. So that would be a solution of the x-intercept. So we can see that many of the solutions are in this form. And if you remember from the first thing we said, that is similar to the form of the quadratic formula. A number plus the square root of something over 2a. And I'm not sure, did they put it in plus or minus? Okay, so they put, yeah, so they put 1 plus, 1 minus. Yeah, so it's the form of a quadratic formula. So these solutions look like you solve them from factoring. So if you try to factor this, factor this, you need a number that multiplies to make negative 1. So 1, because a times c, so 1 times negative 1. A number that multiplies to make negative 1 adds to make negative 1. So if you just sit and think about it, there's nothing that can multiply to make negative 1 and add to make negative 1 at the same time. At least not a whole number. So you know that factoring is not going to work. So you can kind of like just take these out. Or they're still possible. But like through factoring, we can't get these answers. So maybe we can get them through the quadratic formula. So let's just remember the quadratic formula. Negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Okay, so this equation, so if you want the coefficient of x squared is 1, so a equals 1. For me, it helps to just write it out. The coefficient of x is negative 1, so b equals negative 1 equals negative 1. And the coefficient of c is negative 1, so c equals negative 1. Then just plug these in. So negative b, that would be 1, plus or minus the square root of negative 1 squared, b squared, so negative 1 squared, 1 minus 1 minus, okay, I'll use the curse. Oh. Okay, it's not removing. Okay, it's okay. So 1 minus 4 times the value of a and c. So a is 1, c is negative 1. So times 1 times negative 1 all over 2a. A is just 1, so 2 times 1 is 2. So we get 1 plus or minus. Let's just simplify the thing under the radical. So negative 4 times 1 times negative 1 gives you 4. So you get 1 minus 4. That is the square root of negative 3. Or sorry, wait. Oh, it's 1 minus 4 times 1 times negative 1. So it's 1 minus minus 4. And 2 minus makes a negative. So 1 plus 4 becomes 5. So square root of 5. So you get 1 plus or minus the square root of 5 over 2. So this question gives us 1 plus the square root of 5, 1 minus the square root of 5, which is the plus or minus, all divided by 2. This one, it gives us negative 1 plus square root of 5 minus square root of 5 over 2. So, but we see that b is negative 1. So yeah, that was actually a mistake. Yeah, so it's negative, oh, never mind, sorry. So it's negative b. So b equals negative 1, so negative times negative 1 gives you 1. So the answer would be this one. This number should be positive. The answer C. Now that you can also solve this one using Desmos, which is I'm going to show you guys how to do that right now. Does it show up correctly? Okay. So for this one, so you get x squared, just put it in the equation, x squared minus x minus 1. And then you could put equals 0, but then it shows up like this. Okay, it works this time, but sometimes it's not going to work. So you could just find the x-intercepts. That's when y equals 0. So the answer you get is 1.61 and negative 0.618. So automatically you know that, okay, it's not A or B. These are whole numbers. They're not weird decimals like this. So you know it's going to be either C or D. So then from here, you don't know this. Unless you can somehow get a decimal from this, you have to use the calculator. So you put 1 plus the square root. By the way, if you want to put the square root, you just put SQRT, and it just puts the square root for you. So square root 5, and all of that divided by 2. That gives you 1.618033. And then you put 1, then you can put 1 minus, and that should give you the negative 0.61, which is the two numbers you got here. And let's just try answer option D. So you have negative 1 plus the square root of 5, all divided by 2. So that gives you positive 0.61. And let's say you put the minus, that gives you negative 1.61. So that just flips the negative, and which is wrong. But it's close, but it flips the negative, so the answer is C. Okay. So now I think I have one more. Yeah, there's one more medium question, then there's the hard question. So this one tells us, this one shows up a lot. I think this one showed up on every SAT that I've ever taken, a question similar to this one. So it says that the given, and they're not even that hard. It just uses the skills used that we learned in how to solve linear, but you just have more constants, but you just treat it like anything. So the given equation relates the numbers j, k, and m. Which equation correctly expresses k in terms of j and m? So this expresses k in terms of j and m. This just tells me to isolate the constant k. So how to do that? Okay, first thing, let's just remove the addition. So if I'm just gonna rewrite it down here. 14j plus 5k is equal to m. So subtract 14j from both sides, 14j. So because we're trying to isolate the k, minus 14j. So then you get m minus 14j is equal to 5k. Then you just divide both sides by 5, divide this whole thing by 5. You get k equals to, let's just see what form the questions are in. So yeah, so they didn't put the 1/5 on each one, so we can just continue like this. K is equal to m minus 14j over 5. So this is one of the questions where you can't solve it with Desmos. You actually have to use pencil or paper, just if you can't do it in your mind. But you can't use Desmos on this. Not that I'm aware of. So we got k equals to m minus 14j over 5, and that is 14j. Okay, so we got answer k. Sorry, A as our answer. So for the last question, it tells us that in the xy plane, aligned with the parabola 2y equals c for some constant c, so c is a constant, intersects a parabola at exactly 1 point. So when it says something like this, I'm guessing it's gonna need something it's gonna require the discriminant, which was b squared minus 4ac, to so that we can solve for the missing variable. But then it tells us, so if the parabola has the equation y equals negative 2x squared plus 9x, what is the value of c? So first thing I want to do, so if these are I want to put them together basically, so that I can use the discriminant and find what number for C will make it have one solution, so one intercept. So if we want to set them equal to, I can do this one equals y equals C over 2. I just divide both sides by 2. And then I say I got y equals y equals. So then I can do C over 2 equals negative. Sorry. Okay, I can't delete for some reason. Okay, so it's equal to negative 2x squared plus 9x. So what is this giving me? This just tells me that the first equation, so y equals c over 2 is equal to the second equation, y equals negative 2x squared plus 9x. So this is going to give me the intercept point, the point where they intercept. Then, so I want it to be only at 1 point. So if I subtract c over 2 from both sides, I get negative 2x squared plus 9x plus c over 2, where c is a constant. So then here, and then it's equal to 0. Here I got it's a full quadratic, basically, ax squared plus bx plus c. From there I can use the discriminant, so b squared minus 4ac, and I can set it equal to 0, because when the discriminant equals 0, there's only one solution. So if I set this equal to 0, and then I solve for c, if I solve for c, which is, it's right here, it's technically, there's two variables for c, but this is, for ours, c is equal to c over 2. So then and if I set it equal to 0, because at 0 there is one solution, and then I solve for c, I can know what's the value of c, where there's only one intersection point. Sorry. So what is b squared? So b is the number before x to the power of 1. So we get 9 squared minus 4 times a, negative 2, then a is the number before x squared, times c. And for us, c is c over 2, which is kind of confusing, but that's how it is. So then it's equal to 0. Now let's just solve for c. This is just using the basic skills from the algebra domain. So 9 squared is 81 equals minus. So we get negative 4 times negative 2. And sorry, I just noticed a mistake. C over 2 is supposed to be negative because we took it from this side to that side. So we subtracted it, so it has to be negative. So negative C over 2 times negative 2 times negative 4 gives us negative, because there's 3 negatives. So negative times negative positive, positive times negative is negative. So minus 4 times 2 is 8, C divided by 2. So now I want to take 81 to the other side, and it's equal to 0. Now I want to take 81 to the other side so that I can solve for c. So let's start by isolating the term with c. So negative 81 is equal to negative 8c, or I can simplify that to actually, because 8 divided by 2 is 4, so I can do negative 4c. Negative 4c. Divide both sides by negative 4. The answer would be c is equal to 81 over 4. So for this one, because it's short answer, I could literally just put 81/4, and that would be correct. If you want to simplify it, you could do c equals, and you can use Desmos, c equals 20.25. So that is one way to solve it. So then the other way to solve it is to understand the graphs of the equations. Let me just make some room over here. So basically, let's say that you know this equation y equals c over 2. You know that this is going to be a straight line, like something like this. It's going to be a straight line with 0 slope. So then, if there's a parabola, the only way that a parabola and a straight line intersect at only one point is if they intersect at the point's vertex. The vertex is the part where it goes from decreasing to increasing, or increasing to decreasing. So actually, in our case, it's going to be the other way around, because a is negative, so it's actually going to look like this, upside down. So then the only way that a straight line and a parabola can intersect at only one point is if that one point is the intercept. So we're trying to find the value of c. So to solve for that, what you could do is find the vertex. So the vertex, you can find it in this form by negative b over 2a. So this equation, negative 2x squared plus 9x, negative b is negative 9, negative b is negative 9, over 2a. So 2 times negative 2, negative 4. The vertex happens at x equals 9 over 4. So now what can I do? I can't plug this into this equation to solve for c, because that is the x value. And this equation doesn't have any x values. So what can I do? I can plug it in into this one again to solve for x. So if I open Desmos, let me open it right now. And I put, what was their thing? So I put negative 2x squared plus 9x, and I said that equal to 9 over 4. That would give me the x value where that is true. So that is true at the x value, 0.26569. I plug that in, I realize I'm wrong, and I cry. Sorry. So this would give us the x value. So 9 over 4 is the x value, correct? So you put negative 2 times the x value, 9 over 4. We're just solving for the y value right now, because negative 2x squared plus 9x equals y. So you want to solve for the y value so we can plug it into here and get c. So now after we find the negative b over 2a, solve for the x value, if I wasn't clear about that. So now we just plug in 9 over 4, and that is squared, plus 9 times 9 over 4, and I get the answer 10.125. So that means y is equal to 10.125. Then we know that c is equal to 2 times y. So I just do 2 times 10.125, and I get 20.25, which is the same answer we got initially. So this honestly just depends on which approach you realize can be used first, and which approach you're comfortable with. So if you want, you could, if you have, like, not everyone can just recognize the graphs of them. So if you can't recognize the graphs, you could use the approach of using the discriminant, or if you don't like using discriminant or you find it confusing, you could always just use this. And if you want, we could just check our answer. So let's just plug them in and make sure that they only intersect at one point. So negative 2x squared plus 9x, and then we have 2y equals c, and we said that c is equal to 20.25. So let's see what do you see right here? This what? I don't like how it's the same color. Okay. So we have this is the parabola, the negative 2x squared plus 9x. Then this is the straight line. So if you close up, the only time that they the only place where they intercept is at one point, and that is the vertex right here. And that is the only place they intercept. So that is a way for checking your answer. And so yeah, that is it for this video. So if you have any questions, please just let me know in the comments. And if you want me to make a video about anything, also just let me know in the comments. And that is it for today. Thank you for watching, and please don't forget to subscribe, like, and click the bell because I have been uploading daily, and that would help. That would help in supporting me a lot. So thank you for watching, and bye.